Ladies and
We are
gentlemen,
rocking now. Yes, we
we
are
got
live.
East Coast, West Coast, with Philly the judge, Vinny the jury, and we are going to hold people out attainable. We want to know what they're saying, and we want to have them answer to it. Too much on ESPN, too much on SNY, and people give their opinions. They tell you what's going to happen. 90% of the time, they're wrong, and we want to see, and we want to let you folks know out there who's making sense, who's not making sense. The judge and jury, that's what we're going to be doing, and we're going to hold ourselves as well in the fire, because we're going to make some predictions as well. But to let you know about us, Jets fans for 55 years, since we were 7 years old. We bleed green. Philly's out there in California. I'm out here in New Jersey, the Vin Man, East Coast, West Coast, and we're all here about talking Jets, man. We're just here
Yeah,
about
and
talking Jets. Hey,
and
Philly.
we're happy to be doing this because it's our own thing. It makes us happy because we've been doing this so long on the phone. We go back to when, you know, let's just put it this way. We remember Richard Todd was going to be the answer. We remember 100 guys down the line were all going to be the next answer. We remember 1985 sitting in Giants Stadium, and Joe Namath is getting his number retired. And he points up and he says, these guys upstairs, this organization, they're doing some really good things. That was 1985. So that's how crazy it is to be a Jet fan. We know everybody knows that. That's our age. And actually, people like our kids that have been doing this for 30 years, 25 years, whatever it is, that's also 10 years or more with nothing is brutal. But the takeaway is for me, years ago, we used to listen to Mike and the Mad Dog. And if there's ever one guy that would have been the victim of execution by the jury and the judge giving him 3 life sentences, it's Francesa. Because sometimes the guy would make a little bit of sense, but usually when he came to the Jets, he was very colored. He didn't like them. So years ago, I remember thinking, oh my God, this guy is so off, so wrong. I called in once and I talked like I'm talking now. And the guy says to me, I said, you're not going to let me talk. And he goes, yeah, well, go ahead, talk. So I do like this diatribe like I'm doing right now. And then he, at the end, says, you done? I says, yeah. He cuts me off and he says, the red, white, and blue Giants. And I'm like, yeah, he just started talking about the Giants. So
Well,
these guys need to be held accountable.
What I found about him is that he was incredibly wrong almost 100% of the time about everything. Even if he talked about there was big golf going on or basketball, whatever he talked about, that one guy was always wrong. And we always felt like that's how we started. And we waited how many, 30 years to do this? And we felt like, people have to answer to it. If there's someone's writing an article about the Jets, but you realize she's a beat writer for the Giants, this has to be addressed. But, hey, let's look at it. In this long time without Namath, 69, and which has been forever, 50 plus years, we have gone to 4 AFC championship games, and we're 0-4. We had obviously the Mud Bowl, which Shula was smart enough to know when it rained all week, don't cover the field. Of course, the Jets had the better team, the faster team. We had the one in Denver where we had like a 10-0 lead, and then we let that game get away.
Yeah, that was like the 1-yard punt or something. Remember?
Right. We had Parcells, and we had Belichick, and we liked Belichick. And then we had the 2 with Rex Ryan. But you know what? Here we stand. We're all big fans. I think most Jets fans are. JD's the man. A lot better than we've had over the years. Yeah, there's some blips. There's some ones that aren't good in drafts. That happens with everybody. But overall, he is the man. I love Salah. But let's begin, man. Let's go to the game, man. And I got to tell you, let's start with the game at the end. And I got to tell you, Bud, that clock management was, you can't leave him in your pocket. He said he has him there in his pocket. Well, you got to eventually take him out, right? One time out. After, listen, I'm not a Wilson fan. I'm not a Zach fan. I'm a big Mike White fan.
No kidding. Yeah.
I think he has that it factor, something about him. But like we're saying, he got destroyed in Buffalo, but the guy's not keeping himself on the field, but he did almost get killed in Buffalo. but I'm not
Yeah.
as that guy. But he made that 18-yard completion to Elijah. They got the chance for the field goal, but with one timeout, they would have been at that 40-yard line with 45, 50 seconds left. Jets fans, you can't be happy about that. And I get fed up hearing about he's a new coach. It's a new team. There's new scouts, new everything. Okay, it's second year. It's pretty new. But to me, calling a timeout is the most basic thing you could possibly do. You don't have to be a genius to know to call a timeout with under a minute to go.
You know,
So,
the thing about
but I don't get
you're
it.
right
I
about
don't get it.
you're right about all of that. The thing that I'm not going to give him a pass because that was critically um let's just say that was you're on life support to try and somehow save this game out of the ability to snatch failure from success is something that they've always been able to do. You find a way to blow it. Curses, all that nonsense aside, but they found a way to snatch, losing out of a victory. And you got to blame him, absolutely. And the thing, though, that is a little bit different about him is he thought about it, he came back the next day, and he completely owned it. And he said why he did that. And he said right after it happened why he did that. And the problem with that logic is this: he thought it was going to be a little short on second down. So he wanted to hurry it up and let them not give it. He didn't want to get caught with them measuring it, and he doesn't get the first down. And here's the thing: who cares? The clock stops. Let him measure it. That's what he did wrong. It's like if it's second down now and a half a yard, and you got 40 seconds left to win the game, and they measure it and they say, oh, it's now third down, but the clock was stopped. You have that time while they're measuring it, and it's a free timeout. You're able to say, you know what? Let him measure it. But I think in the moment, his passion, he didn't. He was a fan for a minute. He's like, oh my God, I don't want to lose this first down here. But the point was, let them measure it. The clock stops. He still got his 3 timeouts then. He made a mistake, but
sometimes you have to know because, like, when you look at when Detroit called the timeout, that really wasn't actually a good time. Fourth and half a yard, you want to get in there. The rule is on the road. It's not the greatest thing to call that timeout. Well, you know what they did? They called a timeout. They came up with a play that, and Reed said it. It wasn't on film. They never saw that play at all.
Well, you're talking about the Detroit touchdown now?
Yeah,
yeah.
In that instance, they really shouldn't have called a timeout, but they called a timeout. But you know what? Instead of maybe a quick snap trying to get the first down, not having the Jets prepared, they called that timeout. And what did they come up with? They came up with a play that they hadn't used all year. Great, kudos to them. But sometimes you just gotta use them, man.
Well, you're right. And think about it. When Sheldon Richardson years ago, when Rex Ryan was the coach, he calls a timeout, and it wasn't the coach. So what the heck did he call a timeout for? And it wasn't him; it was the coach. Well, this is one time you wanted somebody on that sideline to see that, hey, there's nobody there. Let a coach, somebody quickly call a timeout, and the play doesn't happen. Because if they're in man coverage, and there's nobody there, and you heard what's his name say it after, right? Mosley. He didn't throw anybody under the bus, and I was going to blame him because why weren't you there? But he said I was on the other side. One of us needed to be there, and we didn't get there. So it was either Williams, Quincy, or who's the other guy?
Shepard.
Huh?
I think
Which
was the Shepard?
Shepard, right. One of those guys needed to be there. They weren't there. Somebody should have called a quick timeout. Didn't happen. And there you go. You had that high where everything was great, and the defense was going to shut it down, and you let a 51-yarder get in there. But they did come back though.
Right. But no one really talked about it. But you know what? Really, as disappointed as I got that pass off, someone needed to tackle him at the 10. I get frustrated every time I looked at that play a dozen times.
Yeah.
And you got beat bad. They came up with a great play. Kudos to them, like Reed said in his little post-game press conference. you know what, someone needed to make the tackle. Yeah, first down at the 10-yard line, but now obviously it's a short field. The defense has been playing great. But you know what? Disappointed in that. But get into the meat and potatoes. I'm not a Zach Wilson fan, dude. He a little bit more than 50% completion. I always feel like 17 points against a Detroit defense ranked 32nd in the league. You kind of feel like Mike White. You got to feel like he would have put up a lot more points.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think you could talk about the O-line. You could talk about the fact that they don't have a great running game right now, but he still had the same weapons, right? He had Garrett Wilson, guy's 34 yards away from 1,000-yard season, in 15 games. This guy is the best receiver that they've ever had, best guy we've ever had. And he was open and he missed him a bunch. When it was in late third quarter, you know, he kept missing. Where if he completes a few of those passes, that's why when Saleh says, "Yeah, I left one play on the clock," he messed up. He owned it, which was great. You brought up a good point right now about the defense because I heard Mosley say, "If I had seen that, I would have liked to have a chance to maybe run him down." Well, when Reed says the old, you know, give him credit, give him credit. Have you ever heard Tom Brady? Now, I'm going to say it's the first time we said it. It's never anybody's success. It's his own. We could have done better. We should have done better. We could have done this. They've never given, they don't ever give the opponent credit. I don't want to hear anybody giving the Detroit Lions defense credit. Just say, you all screwed up. Something happened. We own it. We're going to move on. But you know what? That's on me.
Yeah,
That's
I will say,
but
yeah,
that's the problem.
Yeah, Reed did say, listen, bottom line is, though, they didn't blow it. And he said, you got to look at the tape, which we always say, I got to look at the tape. But let me ask you, man, I was disappointed. It's verified. White is not playing this Thursday. Now, we showed that, if we don't make the playoff, what's heartbreaking is one of the best defenses in the league will not have an opportunity to make the playoffs. There are a lot of ways we can get in. Everybody knows, I'm sure the Jets fans, we all know who the Dolphins are playing. We all know who the Chargers are playing. That Colt game, that historic loss affects us because I think if the Colts hold on and beat Minnesota and do what they were supposed to do and blow them out, they have the Chargers at home. That's a motivated team. You got a new coach.
Yeah.
Worst loss in football history, just about.
Well, at least you're right. It was terrible.
That Chargers at the Colts. Can the Colts rebound from that? And already the best back in the league, Tell, he's out for the season. So what are you going to do? Patriots have a tough game. The Bengals come to the Pats, but the Pats are home. So there's a lot of things going on that we could look at. But we got to beat the Jags. And if we beat the Jags, we said it. It's great that Buffalo beat Miami. Of course, if we go in the last game of the season at Miami and we're one behind them, and they're in a spot for a wild card,
we get the break. We
need Jacksonville, and I have no faith. And the thing is, to me, I know this sounds horrible as a Jets fan, and I know one of my other buddies was mad that I was almost thinking this. Listen, when the game starts, I root for the Jets. Yeah. And I wasn't one of those guys when I had Gaze, let's try to lose to get Trevor Lawrence. I kind of felt that.
Yeah. When the game started, it was a suck for Sam or something. Right. Remember that? Yeah. And look how that worked out for us, right?
Right, yeah. But when the game does start, as a 55-year Jet fan, you got to root for your team.
Yeah.
So and listen, I just can't.
He's like, without getting nasty, like I say, he looks like the Gerber baby. He's a man boy. He's a guy who was big man on campus. He was a little brat. But here's the thing. He did play a little bit better. Not clearly well enough because, like you said, they scored, but they should have put up 31 points against this team. So even though they had no running game and the O-line was in trouble and they lost Davis early, he is a guy that is because of the school he went to, which I don't think is much of anything, football. Sorry, BYU fans, great. You want to talk about lacrosse or whatever the heck, but you know what? You don't turn out great quarterbacks. But the guy's tough. He's strong. He's got attitude, but he's been humiliated and slapped around that you have him now coming out on a short week and you have Quentin Williams back on the inside. So that should dominate things on the defensive side again, because they didn't sack Goff, which I think if they did, they would have scored nothing the whole game. But if they can get to Lawrence, they're gonna have a defensive score. They'll do the things that they need to do, and they'll win a big game. I don't want to get into predictions yet,
Well,
but
let me ask you.
they
Right.
have to win. The last thing I want to say though is you talked about something really important about the last game. They are still in control of their own destiny as long as the Patriots lose one of their last three. They lose one and get to 8 losses, and the Jets get to 10-7. They get the tiebreak with Miami. They jump up into third place. They'll be all right. The Chargers are probably in, as are the Ravens. You're fighting the Patriots and the Dolphins for that last spot, and they're in the driver's seat. They really are. But
Well, the problem
you got to
is
do it one at a
that-
time.
Right, with the Dolphins. Now I know the Packers won last night against not a good team. But you know, the Packers are at the Dolphins. They're trying to show some gumption, they're showing some fortitude. It's gonna be a tough one. You hope, can the Packers beat the Dolphins? Then you got the Dolphins at the Pats. You know, it's kind of like if the Bengals beat the Pats, then you kind of maybe want the Pats to beat the Dolphins if the
Right.
Dolphins beat the Packers. Because the thing is, obviously, if we go to Miami, we're 2 games out, you know, anybody knows. But here's the thing. Here's the big $69,000 question. If Zach gets you a victory, and then White's good cleared, I mean, what's the thought? Because I think if you make it a democracy in the locker room, which they're not, and the other players voted, you know, they would vote for White.
You're right.
But-
And you know,
And you're talking about Garrett Wilson in one game had 183 passing yards in one game with White, where he hadn't had that many in like 4 games at the time with Zach Wilson, you know. And so what do you do if we somehow, you know, get that victory against Jacksonville?
well, the thing that's good about it is they'll have the extra time. If they don't win this game, they're not eliminated, but let's face it, they're done. If they win this game somehow, they have that extra time to figure it out. So White is truly ready to go. You know what I mean? They don't have another game until a week from Sunday, New Year's Day, right? So,
Right.
you know, the rest of the team will be in good shape, ready to go, you would think. But then you have plenty of time to decide, to think about, and as a coach, decide who is the better man. And to me, the only way this guy gets to play is if he throws 3 touchdowns again. You know, he's got to throw 3, no picks, but you have to feel beyond just his production. You gotta have that feeling that he's in control of the game, which you still didn't have on Sunday. You did not. I don't
Well-
care. You look at his stats, they're okay, but he did
No,
not.
but they're not when your completion percentage is inches above 50%, barely above 50%. I mean, it's too much for me. And what gets me, I'm so tired of hearing, you know, well, he's only played 19 games. And then you see, what did we talk about yesterday? But, you know, and I know Jets fans, Green and White Nation out there, I'm sure a lot of you feel the same way. This guy Purdy, who's on the 49ers, Mr. Irrelevant. I'm not saying he's thrown 40 yards. Guy's already in sync, doing a job, a couple of TDs, not throwing
He's not-
interception.
You
Great.
don't ask, most
great-
offenses today, they don't ask for much from the quarterback.
Yeah, but the
They
thing
just
is,
ask you to move the ball.
well, that's
it.
what that's
You know,
yeah. Because, but you know, does this sound familiar? San Fran has a great defense. Sound
Right.
familiar? Yeah, Jets has a great defense.
Right.
But already has great. Purdy has, you know, he's in sync with McCaffrey. He's having good numbers with McCaffrey. I'm like, what are we talking about? McCaffrey's been on the 49ers, what, 3-4 weeks? Purdy's all new, didn't expect to come in, and they're doing great things together. And I have to hear about, well, you know, Zach, we have to hear about footwork and
No,
taking the
it's-
shotgun, going a shotgun and then backing up 3 steps. You know, we're kind of thinking, shouldn't he know this when he's 10 years old?
Hey,
Shouldn't
man,
he
we talked about it.
aware?
Yeah. We
Come
talked
on,
about
you
it
know,
yesterday.
Getting
You're
tired
right.
of it. I think Jets fans are getting, and listen, Jet Nation, Green and White, everybody wants Mike White out there. We know it, but we'll see what he does. Now,
Listen,
Sal did say
yeah,
he learned from
he's gonna the best man mess man up. For God's
right, but
sake.
he said he learned from Pete Carroll. You don't start anybody because of when they were drafted, how much money they make, and I hope he's true to his word.
And I think though, if he has a stellar game, that'll give him the ability to say it's even. The guy gets a shot. But the thing to remember about Mike White, you brought up a good point about, well, he doesn't have experience. Well, the thing about Mike White is that he has been on the bench, just like, Geno Smith has been on the bench, and he's fixed a lot of things over this time that he probably, when he was with Dallas and early on with the Jets, he wasn't capable of doing what he's doing now. So what you've seen is the coming to fruition of development of a quarterback that now we don't have to wait for. So why would we want to wait for a guy who is 3 years down the line when we have one right now, who, by the way, will be a free agent next year? So
right,
you've got to figure this out now.
We all know, all Jets fans are thinking it. If White somehow gets away from the Jets, I guarantee you we'll watch him go to another team and he'll light it up. And what I'm saying is, White, right off the bat, even last year, right off the bat, when Wilson wasn't doing it and White came in, lit it up right away. Lit it up. Even that call came 100 yards in the first quarter. Then he got hurt. Okay. So now Wilson gets benched. White comes in right away. Everything changes. So now you got a guy, I got to hear, he's played only 19, 20 games. And I got a guy who's played
like 3 games,
since last year, 5, 6 games. And
but
he's got
the point about that guy, though, is you're right. He, like I say, practice means a lot. He's had a lot of time to figure out what he needs to do. The only thing that I'm concerned with about White is escapability and the fact that he does seem to get injured a little bit, but that's not really his fault because the whole line is in trouble. He deserves the chance to win the job for real. He really does. And is Zach Wilson going to be there for the long term? I don't think so. I didn't like the pick. I never did. But the point is, they are not going to give up on him that quickly because of the fact that it's at the expense, as we all know, right? Jet fans, you pick high, you want to make it work. But JD and Saleh know that they have too much of a future right now going for them to play games with it, because you lose the locker room. And like Elijah, Moore is thrilled now. He's happy to be there. He's excited now. Just 3, 4 weeks later, 5 weeks later. So they're young guys. They're impressionable guys, but they have a great leader. They have a great coach, and you have to ask yourself, who is the better leader, Zach Wilson or Mike White? And you ask the team, it's Mike White. Zach Wilson has proven that he is not a good leader. So that is what you need to know going forward. Who has the team? And it's definitely Mike White.
No, it's definitely Mike White. And it's very much a big thing to me when you see a receiver. And I love Garrett Wilson because he tells it like it is. He's not being a brash guy. He's just very smart, great at what he does, knows the talent that the Jets do have. So, he says it like it is. But when you see these guys, when he misses a throw, if you miss one once in a while, fine. But to miss one, so many times to miss throws, and you see the frustration on the receivers' faces, that doesn't bode well, and you see a very, 18 for 30, 18 for 35?
Yeah, it's basically 500, yeah. And Mike White is a 70% guy now,
Right, bad every time he's out there.
And the problem is, when he threw that pick, that's when he lost me for sure. You cannot throw. He should have had that other pick when he airmailed it, and luckily, who the heck caught? I don't know. It was a Carter went up and got it, and brought it down for a first down. That was a pick, should have been. So he still made. It's about going into this game for me. I needed 3 things from Wilson. I wanted him to have command of the game and be decisive. Yeah, I don't think so. I needed 3 touchdowns, solid production, 300 plus yards. He had some production, but those picks and that almost pick were brutal. And then the humility, all right, he showed a little bit of that, so that's some maturity or some, at least what you have to say. But in the end, he is not there. Physically, he's not there mentally to lead a team to the Super Bowl or something. He's not. Is he going to ever be? I don't know. I don't think so.
I just, it's a gut feeling. Who knows? Listen, I've always been a big fan of golf. I like golf when he came out with the Rams. I really loved the kid. Made it to the Super Bowl. The next couple of years, I have no idea what happened to him. He just wasn't getting it done. Last year, Detroit was horrible, wasn't getting it done. All of a sudden, it changed. I just don't feel that with the kid. I don't feel that with Wilson. But let's do it. Let's do it now. Judge and jury's out. Let's put ourselves on right in the fire, because we're so quick to judge people. Listen, Tim Hasselback blew the Jets off. Didn't like to hear that. No regard for them, which still gets me, upset when folks, don't really know the Jets too much. And he picked Detroit, easy game. We know what happened. I can't give him the guilty, but let's put this out there. Let me ask you, the judge, Philly, what's going to happen Thursday? What do you think? Come on, win or lose, Jets, Cole.
I think they're going to win, and they're going to win big. I think.
You think they're going to win big, or they're going to win big with Wilson?
Well, I think they'll find a way to look. I think that defense is going to show up big time. I think Lawrence is definitely becoming the quarterback that we want Wilson to become. You got to think of it this way, though. Did Wilson getting back out there get some of the rust off since he hasn't played? And I'm just hopeful that they sat him down and they said, listen, you did some good things. Your footwork is still bad. You didn't, you hesitated. You had open guys. You waited too long. Okay. Hey, Mike White, if anybody other than Berrios,
catches that ball against the Vikings.
Yeah, if anybody does that, right? Other than Berrios, that's a catch, right? So I'm a little down on Berrios, but you can't really blame White for that throw. But he didn't make the perfect throw, but it should have been a touchdown. But this guy misses so wide, so far and guys are wide open that it's inexcusable. So going forward, if he doesn't, last week that's what I wanted: the decisiveness and the humility, whatever. And the production. For me, this week, I expect you got Davis back. You've got Wilson. You got more. He's going to have his weapons. Don't know what happened, like we talked about. Where's the running game other than
I keep looking for Ty Johnson. He's not on the injury report. Big, tough running back.
Yeah,
the line isn't getting a push. We want a bigger guy. But okay, so you're saying
I think once you do that, he's going to not make as many mistakes. You're going to see his percentages, his completion percentage go up, and the silly, bad interception cannot happen at all. And I'm sure they sat him down and said, do not do that again, because that's the type of stuff that they're pointing to, that he will not win this job going forward if he continues to do. Because that's what he's doing. It's like Sanchez did. You cannot tell a guy over and over, okay, I got it, and then you do the same thing. Yeah, okay, I got it. You do the same thing. He does it every week. So is there improvement? Yeah.
It's frustrating. But you know what? You're saying they're going to win big. My prediction,
because of the defense too, I think the defense is going to get them in field position that they weren't in this game. Because the defense against Detroit this week was fantastic, because they didn't allow a big score, but they did, for a lot of the game, allow them to get some decent field position. So if they put them back where there's nothing, and you pick it up at your own 40, 50-yard line, you got a shorter field, they're going to score more points, the Jets. That's what I think.
My prediction, okay, that's yours, and we'll answer to it. We're gonna address it. We're not gonna hide from it. We're not gonna say it and then you don't hear from us. Jets Nation, we'll be here to talk about it. But here's my prediction. I think the Jets win. I think the defense is dominating. I think they score a TD. whether from a fumble or an interception, and I think they're going to win in spite of Zach Wilson. I think they won a lot of games in the beginning when he was 5-1 and all that because of Brees Hall, in spite of him, and that's what I'm going to call. That's what I'm going to say.
Yeah.
And then
What are you going to give me a score? What are you going to give me?
Oh, score? You want to? I'm not asking for. Well, what's your score?
My score, they're going to win 38-10.
30, 38 points with Zach Wilson. Not happening, dude.
No. I'm saying there might be a
I want the
defensive
Jets to
score.
win. I'm a Jets fan. It's in my blood.
I'm
But
thinking
you
a
know what?
defensive score. I think they're going to open up
Right.
holes. I think they're going to have a short field. Yeah, I know. There it is.
That's my
I
neighborhood,
know I'm
baby.
crazy, but I think that is what they must do. Go into their mini bye to bring it home. Because then they go into Seattle and then they go into Miami. This is their last game at home right now. This is it for the season.
All right.
They're
Here we
not
go.
playing any playoff games at home. This is
Well,
it. This is the finale. So if you got anything in the tank left, let's go. You got to do it. That's it.
here it is.
So-
I'll give you mine. All right, and then we'll say goodbye to everybody and then see how we do. Hopefully, a lot of people get into seeing us on YouTube. We've been doing this for 40 years ourselves, but now we're on real live here. Old guys getting in with the 21st century. That's what we're doing. But my score, 17-6, 17-6. Jets defense dominates. They get a scoring TD. Zach Wilson does a few things, but they are going to win in spite of him.
Good. I hope. Listen, I'm getting a little crazy because I'm expecting a couple of maybe a defensive score, maybe somebody rips off
All of it.
one, but I don't know. I want to see them dominate a game, and if they're going to do it, now's the time because that's how they're going to go into make a playoff run. And then if that happens, you won't see Mike White again. That's the bottom line.
That's what I don't want to. I don't want to hear. But my buddy, looks like you've been in outer space for a while. You're doing well in your spaceship.
I'm losing my yeah. Just I want to tell you one last thing, okay? Before we go. I always joke around and say little question for people. There are two teams that have not been in the Super Bowl longer than the Jets. Okay, since before the merger, there are just two teams that have yet to be in a Super Bowl and haven't been in one longer than the Jets. Okay, that's the Cleveland Browns, who they beat by a point this year. Detroit Lions, who they just lost to. So when the worlds collided this year, they got a chance to play the two teams that are still behind them for Super Bowl failure, right? Because okay, they got there and won once. These two guys haven't been there, but they've won championships. But they have to now get to the Super Bowl before these two teams because they had the chance to do something this year. I don't know. I'm just tired of it. I get it. But I think in the end, you're going to see some good things from this team. But it's got to start now. There's no more time. 3-0, and they're in. That's the way I look at it.
Well, it's time will tell. It's a short week. Excited to be out here with you, Big Phil, out there in Cali.
I'll come down from outer space here,
And the Vinman out here in beautiful New Jersey.
Yeah.
New Jersey, it's lovely. Though we're both Brooklyn born and raised, which is why we talk funny. But exciting. So let's see how it goes. We'll develop this little East Coast to West Coast. The judge, the jury will start hearing what other people are saying after this game against Jacksonville, and we'll start taking people to task.
Yeah, and the pain and the craziness of being a Jet fan, that comes with it. That's why we enjoy it. It is a labor of love. They are ridiculous, but
Absolutely.
one day somehow, But anyway, yeah, that should do it, guys. All right, we'll talk to you next week.
Get your spaceship throttle and turn us off. All right, buddy.
Got it, Pally. Be good.
See you soon. Take care.